We'll call the meeting order. Would you please stand and salute the flag?
They tricked us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
And
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Welcome to the meeting. The next thing is the approval of the minutes from our last meeting, which was September 4th. Thought they were.
we approve the minutes of September 4th, 2024.
Was the motion by Chris, second by Mark to approve the minutes of September 4th. All those in favor? And next, there are department reports and
Evening. Crashes, they're happening everywhere. Going on, but that's been the last few weeks, we've responded to several crashes, along the PD, EMS. Variety of reasons for the crashes, but fortunately nothing too serious. We are up to about 137 calls this year, since January 1st. Apple Fest went very well. Great turnout. I don't know if it was the weather or if it was in Cabin Masters. I did notice there was a lot of different people out and about, not just from our community. It was kind of nice. Firehouse Museum went well. Numerous tours, got a lot of nice compliments, and we had a good fundraiser for our organization. So thanks for everybody that turned out and got some chili or pulled pork sandwiches. Sunday, we're gonna have our fall harvest sale. It's gonna be at the Highmore Farm. Access off the Cressy Road, the back way through the field. And that's gonna be at 10 o'clock. We selling pumpkins, apples, baked goods. That supports our Richard P. Milligan Scholarship. It's our annual fundraiser for that. Looking like good weather for Sunday, not so much for Saturday. Tuesday, we got Fire Prevention Week, for the school. This year, we try to go every other year. So this year it's gonna be at the firehouse. So we'll be entertaining pre-K, kindergarten, first and second graders. It'll be either walking or being bussed down. So I see some littles walking down the road. Careful if you're out and about. That's an all-day event.
They might not want to walk this year.
Oh, good. You know, I didn't even think of that with all that construction. That's a
Yeah.
Good point.
It's an issue trying to walk. Yeah. Yeah,
Just busting.
yeah, exactly.
So that's Tuesday, and then Saturday is gonna be our annual open house / Sparky breakfast. That's from 7 to 10. Saturday the 12th. Well, break bread with Sparky. Hope to see you guys. Recently, in the last few weeks, we've had all our annual testing done of our hose, ladders, pumpers, a lot of preventive annual maintenance. No major issues found, which is good. Then the last thing I got is put a request in for another updated quote for replacing our repeater up on Norris Hill. We had mentioned that a few months ago, put it on hold, and I'd like to try to get that done before it gets too cold up there. Again, it's 25 to 30-year-old equipment, so it's long overdue to be replaced. And trying to replace components right now to get it. So it's gonna be somewhere in the price range of $15,000, maybe $18,000, and still waiting on the quote on labor. Just the equipment alone, I think it's around 12 grand. As I get an updated quote, I'll let you guys know. Again, that's gonna be budgeted out of our capital improvement plan, large equipment. All I got for now. Oh, back on the ISO, the guy did get back to me. Thinks we've improved our score he doesn't want me to go official with it yet. I get the report in hand. He says that can take a couple months to get that, so. Crossing our fingers, we're gonna improve our insurance rates for the town.
Once you get a rating, how long is it good for, Dan? Do you know?
I don't.
It's 5 years.
Is there-
Thank you.
So
I just took that because of my insurance background, but
Mhm.
Yeah.
it always used to be 5 years. Evening. I'm wondering why I called you all here tonight.
No.
Again, I wanna reiterate what Dan said, Apple Fest, we and the turnout, 5K was good, I think they had like 160 runners for the 5K and time itself and food time for safety to a maximum, and everybody got through the race and it went well. Apple Fest again was well attended, as Dan said, good turnout. I went down to the event that Kevin Masters had, and they had a really good turnout down there as well. All day long, I mean, the people parked on both sides of 202 for that event. Maybe, vendors from, I think as far away as Connecticut, if I remember right. There were 300-400 people at that event all day long, just, it was a good kid event because there's a lot of stuff to do for the kids. It was good to see that. We had our first fully attended, consolidation meeting for the PDs last night. Went over a lot of topics, discussed a lot of issues, got some, direction to head in now, so, I will keep you updated on that as we go forward. The main thing is, my main concern is, getting the information out there to the public, so I'll be doing a, informative style letter. I'll send it through to the town managers and they can post it on the PD websites and send it out to you folks, just to let you know, where we're headed, what we want to do, why we want to do it, why we think it's good, and just to keep the public informed. I want this to be as open a process as we possibly can do, and I think that's one of the better ways to do it, and just getting the word out there. People to let them know what we're trying to do and why we're doing it. Other than that, that's all I have tonight.
I had a question on the Apple Fest. I think in the past, there'd been detours like at Maple and Gray Mill Road. Signs, yeah. And I don't think that happened this year from the interesting things that I saw all day long.
Yeah, the signages were locked up in PW and I don't have a key to get in there, so
Oh.
we had requested,
Oh,
the road barricades.
Oh,
We
okay.
We didn't request those up front, so
okay,
that's why they didn't. put them.
okay, all right. It was, there were a few interesting situations that I watched with,
It was pretty much, people pull up, say, take your first left, take a right, take your next left, get on the other side.
oh, exactly. But a lot of people came straight up Maple Street thinking they were gonna get to the lake. And then there were lots of boats trying to figure out how they were gonna get turned around because they didn't realize they could just go up to Welch Avenue and try it again, but so I figured there had to have been some little snafu there with the signage, so.
I'm working on a lease for the Compton HVAC project was authorized. We received 2 responses to a real estate broker RFP, so we can get back on track with the foreclosure process. And those will be brought to your next meeting for your approval. And then I'm considering putting out an RFP for banking services to make sure that we're getting all that we can from our banking partner. So probably won't put that like far and wide on the street because there's only certain banks that we really want to work with, ones that have governmental units and not just every credit union or whatever that's out there. So probably be a little selective about who that gets sent to. And that's it, unless there are any questions.
Thank you for getting pothole filled
You're welcome.
at the corner of New and North Main. Is there any news on, our next audit?
It's scheduled for November, when they're gonna be in the office. Mark's working on some of the pre-stuff currently, pre-audit stuff.
Is it possible that we're gonna have that before?
You might have that one, but I probably won't have the newest one. It's possible, but I'm just trying to manage expectations. Because you have to set the budget right early April. I mean, we might get it by June, but that's not helpful for your process.
You just have to be real, careful with what we're doing. You got to be budgeting. Keep it as down as much as possible. Okay, select board reports.
I had one person reach out to me because they couldn't make tonight's meeting, so they wanted me to ask the question for them about, what the finger on the pulse of looking at, zoning for the future, what that entails, just because we're getting more and more requests for development and how we keep our open spaces and still look at that. So I'm not sure how that process has to happen.
Typically, it is something that the select board assigns to the planning board for their review. And they can create either a subcommittee or they could do it as a group, but zoning needs to come from the planning board
Okay.
back to you.
Okay. And,
Do it,
yep,
do it, so we can start on it, please.
yeah, so that's something we need to make a
If
motion.
if it's something you want to do, I'll put it on a future agenda so that
Okay.
the public is aware that you're considering.
Yeah, I think that that's something, I'm interested in because it's not the first person that's talked to me about what the plans are and what things we're looking at or what we can or can't do. And without zoning, there's nothing we can do. So, and,
The planning board has found irregularities in some of our current ordinances.
okay.
I
All right.
think they will have to be weeded.
So I think that's a good idea. I've heard from several people, but this person today reached out to me, so.
And it's possible that could be something that we could either contract with Isabel to help
Mhm.
with or KB cog, somebody, it may be a heavy lift for the planning board on its own.
Exactly.
Because there's a lot of detail that goes into that.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly we can copy definitions and stuff from others, but just to kind of package that together properly, it may be something that we need help.
Isabel's good at that.
Yeah, and so if we've got her, I think that's the perfect opportunity to start moving in that
I'll add it to
direction.
the agenda unless there's an objection.
I had a constituent question about the November 5, the logistics of the November 5 election. And whether this room was going to be, or this building was going to be a big enough facility to handle the quantity of voters that we're expecting. And the question was, what if it rains? Are people going to be standing in line outside?
Yeah, we have worked with, or the town clerk has worked with Rich and Lori on trying to make the best use of this space. Like, we'll have to get this table out of here to give us more room. Having people enter from the long end so that we can queue more people up in the hallway. Our major issue is just managing the flow into the room so that there aren't too many people in here, so that, because the backup comes with the voting machines. They're slow. So when you put paper in them, you got people standing there. If you let too many people in here to vote, they vote faster than the machine can process the ballot. And then they queue up behind and they start being up behind other people that are voting. So it's really gonna be managing them at the door and not letting not letting too many people into this room at the same time.
So regulating at the door, how many folks are in this space?
Right, so they don't queue up behind the voting machines.
And is it possible we could make use of the weightlifting room, the workout room?
But what I'm saying is we're gonna have people enter from the end,
Yeah,
cut through there, and we're gonna put,
and maybe we could zigzag or something.
well, we're buying partitions so that if someone has kids in here or whatever, they're not running back into all the machines that are back there. But there's really, even if we move some of them, there's really no floor space. And, you know, if you pushed them all down, we'd only gain, you know, we'd only gain about a third of the room. So it wouldn't really accomplish very much. So we have tried to modify it, you know, in that case in the last election, it was clearly more Democrat ballots that were absentee. And we're not seeing that anymore. Both parties are now voting very heavily absentee. So I'm not sure how many more voters were, you know, I'm not sure it's going to be the same number of people voting in person. I think there'll be a lot more absentee ballots. So it may not be, you know, as significant as I think.
My only other thing is coming up as item number 7. We can wait until then.
So next is public comment. Yes, Donna.
I actually just wanted to share about the opening with the school board, which I know Rick or somebody notified you of that. But also to ask that you consider, there was a discussion in the school board about the Bill, because Bill Burgess currently serves, he's filling in a term, and so he's up for re-election in June. And so his request, or the school board's request, was to move him to the 2-year fill-in and have an open election. Fill in however you want for this year. There's people available, but then to fill in and have the election for the 1 year be for this new position. Does that make sense?
Possible.
I'm not sure that we're allowed to do that, but I'm happy to ask that question. My first reaction is that we can't,
Yeah,
but
sure.
I'm happy to ask. Try to
Just
find
ask
out
to
for
come and
sure.
have a conversation,
Yep.
so. Fair enough.
Our current understanding, and we can check with legal counsel on it, but our current understanding is we have the power to appoint until the next available election. Not November,
Right.
it would be in June.
Right.
So then at that election, there would be the remainder of the open term up for election. And whatever cyclical,
I think that's how
See.
we've seen it done, yeah.
Right,
yeah.
so, you know, trying to shoehorn somebody from one to another might actually change the cyclical nature of the terms when they come due. And that's not something we want to mess with, because then it gets lumpy.
Well, it's also
Right.
not what they were voted in the first place for, so
Right.
you can't.
And I think the other part of that, there's a lot of discussion about making sure, and I say that lightly, right? Because you can never really ensure anything, but at least doing our best to have a conversation with folks to let them know what the responsibility is, the time commitment and the responsibilities, because it's a way heavier lift. And I know the board has been making efforts at trying to do that, but it's a way heavier lift than people typically expect. And so we just want to make sure that people understand if they're going to just be filling in for this year, that's one thing. But if they're, looking at, an elected position and what that means, it's more than just one meeting a month. There's, a lot of requirements and subcommittees and other ad hoc committees and responsibilities that there are representatives at. And so I'm more than happy to talk to anybody about that and what that would look like if people are interested. But I wanted to make that available and just share that with all of you. I appreciate the fact that it's not always easy to make these fill-ins, and you've done it a couple times now in the last year, and it's worked out great.
Are all the meetings now at Reed Street?
Yes, they are all in a central location. It was difficult with transportation. and technology, right? So the technology having to have stored and moved all over the place for every meeting and moving it into the gyms and having, some challenges around that. So there are meetings in the communities. They have increased separate meetings that aren't board meetings, but they're community-based meetings for open forum that we are doing in each community, and those are coming up too. So there'll be one here in Monmouth, and there'll be one in each of the towns. And there are some other efforts that they're looking at. There's a new newsletter that's going out to try to build out that communication. But all the formal meetings, so that we can continue with online and having as much public input as possible. All those are now in person at Reed Street, yes.
Because it'd make it much easier for the board members to not have to travel around all the different towns, even though there's one less town now, but
Right.
still, that was very, I think, time consuming and difficult for the board members back when they were not doing them well in Hollowell.
It's also difficult for people to know, where are we this month?
Yeah.
Right? And we were doing the same thing with subcommittees. We would hold our subcommittee meetings for the month in the month of the town that we were hosting our regular meeting in. And so it's like, oh, where are you now? And so it just became really difficult to figure all that out. And so it's worked out really well with good communication, good process, central location. And people know exactly where they could be and where they need to be to participate. There's no hunting it down. And it is much more central, even for those people from Dresden to go to Hollowell or even Monmouth to get to Hollowell. Certainly convenient for Farmingdale and Hollowell, but it's much more central. So even in bad weather, you don't have as far to go. Especially if you have kids to pick up at this. We're trying to enhance communication and opportunities for openness. So I think it's been helpful, but good feedback about it.
How many vacancies are there on the board?
Just one.
Just one, and that term, to fill that one term, would it be a 1-year position?
That's what the remainder of the term is 2. So if the idea is that you appoint someone to fill up until the next election, which is June, and then that June would be electing someone to fill in the remainder of the 1. Or, as it was asked to discuss, if you have the opportunity to make it 2-year, but it doesn't sound like that. So. Yeah. It makes sense because they're elected positions. So, fair enough. So in June, it would be 2 elected positions. It would be Bill's renewal of 3 years. I think you will, and then the open position. So it would be just 2.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Next is to consider approving TIF money for the Trails Committee.
Ms. Bryant, I'm representing the Trails Committee. Nice to meet you. Were you able to get this letter out?
No, I can go make copy. I didn't see that. Did you send that to me?
Chuck Cohen had sent that to you this morning.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I didn't. Nope. I can go run and make copies if you'd like.
Kind of marked it up a little bit.
Let's give it a second.
In general, the Trail Committee has been looking at opportunities to increase trail usage in town. Trails for recreation and alternate transportation. We solicited and received a proposal from the Outdoor Sports Institute to assist us with trail planning. And the reason why we're looking at this is in order to help us apply for grants. The state of Maine and the federal government has a recreational trails program that they give out grants for. The normal grant cycle would be to apply at the end of June of each year. Evaluate the grant applications. If we get funded, then we'd be able to use the grant to work on trails. They have the RTP program does have a match in there. Matches can be as low as 20% though. And money that's spent on things like trail planning, volunteer hours, volunteer materials, those are types of things that can work towards the matching part portion of that for grants. I don't know if, I guess you don't have the OSI proposal either.
Nope.
So we have the proposal here. I can-
Thank you. We got one other photocopy job.
Thank you.
Okay, the longest, only it takes that long, because you have to wake it up.
So our chairperson, Chuck Cohen, wasn't able to make it tonight, but he drafted this letter to kind of overview what we're looking at. The main focus of what we're asking OSI to do is to evaluate some trail opportunities throughout the town, and then focus primarily on some accessible trails that we would like to build behind the school system, mostly on RSU2 property. It would connect into some neighboring property on Catherine Ludwig's, where she's been doing work on her new property next to the RSU2. But hopefully over time, we'd be able to use this as a central point and connect out to other places. If there is a development off Main Street, like, in coming years, having the ability to connect in from there. Using the sidewalk system, hopefully being able to connect down to Main Street as well. But giving some place that's accessible for anyone to use. So a nice surface that people could use on those trails. Other stuff in town, we're not looking at making quite as accessible, but we are looking for recommendations from OSI for ways that we can improve these trails and expand the usage in town. So the proposal from OSI it shows us 5 phases. The 4 phases are the main part. There's an optional 5th phase. It's roughly $6,000 for the first 4 phases, which would do an analysis of the trails all around town, but specifically figuring out what we need to do to put in an application for the accessible trails behind the town. And then the optional part is another 3,000 or so. The total comes to a little under $10,000. If the extra 3,000 is to analyze snowmobile trails, see what we may be able to do to either improve snowmobile trails or use snowmobile trails for other purposes. That's all. We don't really know where that's going to go yet. So what we're asking for is the authorization to spend TIF money on this proposal up to the full amount, the full $9,500. I don't have the numbers here, but you should have them.
$9,760.
Yep. With the understanding that we would only initially commit to the first part of that, Justin would have the ability to spend up to the first 6,000 something. The initial work, and then if we feel like this was good and it's worthwhile, and we think that we'll be able to get good use out of it for the next phase, phase 5, then Justin would be able to allow us to continue that money as well. We, as I said, this is on the back of the RSU2 property mostly. We are going to talk to RSU2 about this tomorrow and make sure that we have talked with them already with the superintendent there, and he's given us support for this, but we want to make sure that the board is supporting of us in concept of us doing this. We would then work with them to make sure that whatever plan we do develop matches something that they would be willing to support, but we definitely don't want to do this if we don't get at least general concept of buy-in from them. So we do need to get that tomorrow, but we'd like to get your approval tonight if we can.
How much should we put into, I know we've been putting stuff into the trails line of
So-
that TIF.
So we haven't, there isn't a budget for the TIF for currently this year. The Economic Development Committee is gonna organize and they're gonna recommend a budget for you to approve.
Mhm.
This, I believe, is somewhat time sensitive, so what I suggested was that whatever that budget is that the Economic Development Committee recommends, that they understand that this would come out of whatever they budget and bring to you for the Trails Committee's budget. I think it would make sense to create a budget line in the TIF budget for the Trails Committee and say, this is how much money that we're gonna let you, spend every year on your initiatives, and then have that committee manage that process. They can't spend anything without coming to you anyway, so there will be another check, but if they kind of knew every year that they had 15,000 or whatever the number is that you come up with, they could manage what their expectations are as well with what projects they can sort of take on, but I think we kind of wanted to get this moving, so we're just kind of asking whether you support the idea, and if you do, then you could set a number, and the Eco-Devo committee will consider that when they build the budget.
Just to give you an idea of where we stand on the TIF balance and the TIF annual revenue, I think the positive balance in the TIF account now is somewhere in between $350,000 and $400,000.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
And that balance is increasing by about $100,000 or more.
Yeah.
Depending on the year and what the valuations are for property in the TIF district. So it's got, we've sort of intentionally not been spending anything from the TIF because we know that the Main Street Sidewalk project is coming. And the more we can make a down payment on that project, the easier it'll be to handle whatever we have to finance for the balance. So we've held off, pretty much spent, I think maybe we've got some facade improvement things and a couple of, event
Yeah.
type stuff, but it's been pretty minimal on an annual basis. And most, I would say like 90% of the TIF revenue has just been saved into the TIF account to accumulate.
Definitely for this, because it's something we've been striving for, to add recreation opportunities and trails for a long time, so.
So I guess just to clarify what he mentioned was doing the first few phases there.
Mhm.
Do you want to authorize the full 9,700 and leave it to the Trails Committee to decide whether they want to move to the next phase, or do you want them to come back to you again for that last piece? You just need to make your motion clear so that.
I would make a motion that we authorize the 9,700, that we authorize the town manager up to 9,700. And that there's some discretionary point at which the Trails Committee can talk with the town manager about whether that fifth phase actually is useful and worth it. And so we're not necessarily committed to doing that, but we have the opportunity to do it if the Trails Committee and the town manager are in agreement. And that way we don't have to come back. The timing of that fifth phase is kind of important because it all depends on snow season. And so having some flexibility to be able to pull the trigger on that if we think it's worthwhile would be super helpful.
Did you have a question?
No.
I'll second that motion with it 9,760 We want to keep the $60 in
$60.
there.
Sorry about
Yes.
that. I'll accept a friendly amendment.
Any other discussion, all right? So Ken has made a motion and Chris has seconded it to have the town manager what are you gonna do?
Authorized to sign.
Authorize this.
Yeah, authorize me to spend the money out of the account, but in consultation with the Trails Committee.
Okay, all those in favor? Next is to consider an application for an online premise license for the Route 202 Pizza and Grill. You checked them out.
I have not checked them out. I don't have any objections, I think I.
Yeah, I sent this one to you. Yeah.
Don't have any objections to this, or any concerns with that.
I make the motion, we approve the application for the on-premise license for Route 202 Pizza and Grill.
So Chris has made a motion. Mark, yes, Dave.
The application should be modified to make it correct anyway. That place is a lot less than 4 miles to the church.
0.4.
0.4.
24?
Yeah,
Okay.
there's a
I
dot
thought
in front of the
when it
4.
copied it, 4.
There's a dot in front of the 4, but it's
Okay.
probably, you
I
know,
didn't get the dot.
0.4, and it's not the United Church, it's probably the Mormon Church, so.
Thank you.
So, Chris made the motion and Mark seconded it to approve the online license application for the Route 202 Pizza and Grill. All those in favor? Thank you. Next, we consider the draft kayak rental application and associated fees.
So does everybody have a copy in front of them? I made copies in case.
Yeah.
You need one?
Yep.
So, it's pretty straightforward, but I could kind of go through some of the bigger points. The rack spaces, this is the draft language in here. You'd be able to rent the spaces at the kayak rack down there at the beach. It's now the boat launch between May 1st and November 1st. They're available to people that can also get passes to the beach or that are eligible to use the beach. The cost is $50 for the season. The rack is not allowed for any watercraft used to access a moored or anchored vessel. They'd be on a first come, first served basis, so we would make them available probably like March, pick a date, March 1st or something, and the first people that come in to get them would get them. The rack spaces will be numbered, and we have already we've already purchased little tags if this goes through, that they're like little metal tags that you would have to fasten somehow to your vessel any way you want, so that we can make sure that the one that's in that spot is supposed to be there. They have to be secured with the owners, however they want to do that. It needs to be secured so that they can't be taken off or fall off. You can't leave anything except your vessel down there. You can't leave paddles, flotation devices, anything like that. There's a 2-space limit per household. And I think that's pretty much it. And there's a little drawing of the spaces on the back. So you come into the town office and you say, I would like to have that one. It's available. That's the one you get. So obviously, if somebody's quite short, we would encourage them to take one on the bottom, and if they're tall, we would ask them that they're incapable, we ask them to take one on the top. I don't know any comments or changes or concerns.
I assume that this was kindly donated by another
Yes,
municipality.
it has I've taken a few rules out of it, but I got this from Eric over in Reedfield,
Yeah,
the one they use.
and that fee is what they doing essentially at other places as
Yeah,
well.
it's similar. There's a range, but it's pretty much in that. It's a reasonable fee, I
Yeah.
think, for
Oh, yeah.
someone to leave something down there.
And did the material cost of this thing come out of the rec budget?
Yes, yeah, it will.
I saw an invoice from-
Yeah,
I thought it-
did I just put it through on this
I thought it-
one?
Well, I thought it was in
Okay.
the warrant.
I couldn't remember if it was,
Kayak.
I couldn't remember if it was still in my box or if I paid it, but yeah.
But not the wood, that was the Boy Scout project.
The Boy Scouts built it at no cost. We paid for the
Oh,
materials.
we paid for the material, okay.
They said that they were willing to do it, but if we could help them out,
Yeah.
it would, so I told them.
Yeah, because we have that extra.
Will there be any signage down there, sort of explaining what's going on?
We can. I don't have any objection. If there's certain things that you think are worth putting up, we can.
And it seems to me like maybe we oughta. Maybe you and Tony can sort of brainstorm about what would make sense,
Sure.
but just so that. People know that it's available, first of all, right?
Right.
But it is
But-
for
but-
being through the tab.
Yeah, you gotta pay the town, you gotta come in and.
That's a good suggestion.
Yeah.
Get something up.
Of course, we've got plenty of time before that has to
Yeah.
happen. Put it.
So
So I make a motion, we approve the kayak rental application and associated fees.
So Chris has made a motion and Joe has seconded it to approve the rental agreement and fees. All those in favor? Thank you. Next is
Social media.
to consider the draft social media policy.
This is just sort of to set some standards of what the town can post, who can post things, and, you know, who's allowed to post things, what they're allowed to post. And, like department heads can post things about their own department, obviously, without checking with me, but if the chief wants to say something about the fire department, he needs to run that through me first, so we can all have a conversation. Just some basic things like that. It also defines, what content is acceptable, when it's acceptable, who can authorize what. Just talks about, using appropriate language that's not slang or offensive to anybody. Fonts and colors that are more acceptable to people that are visually impaired, some of the standard boilerplate language. It also talks about, that comments on town-owned Facebook pages are not allowed. So someone can obviously they can take them and forward them off to whatever they want, and they can create comments on them. But allowing comments on town pages is not recommended by the town's attorney, because we would then have to purchase a software package, because that then becomes a forwardable activity, and it's quite expensive and then someone has to manage that too, to make sure that we back it up so that we can receive those if we ever get. And the last portion in here sort of talks about what's acceptable for employees that are posting about town business and what that can look like. We're never gonna refrain people from using Facebook to do what they want, but if they are using it as a way to get back at supervisors or to complain about their official duties, that is not allowed. It's considered misconduct, just like it would be if you were standing on the sidewalk out there, screaming about how my boss is a jerk while it's just not, it's not really acceptable behavior. That section is quite long, so I'm not really gonna read it, but it's just trying to make it clear that we're not trying to restrict people's personal ability to express themselves. They have to understand that there is a difference between, your rights as an individual and your rights as an employee.
And so we're talking about what it is that folks might post on their personal Facebook page when they're working for the town as
Correct.
as an employee.
Yeah.
And do we have
Such
anything?
as linking the fire department page and then making a comment about something that happened there that had to do with their job.
Do we have anything in like handbook about that so that we have some sort of?
This would be it. This would be the social media policy that would get incorporated into the employee handbook, and they have to sign and acknowledge this when they are.
So they know up front, this is not gonna be a surprise.
That's correct.
Or an after the fact type of thing.
Right, and we would have to ask people to re-sign it. Any policy like this that goes out, we have to get signatures from every employee before we can hold them to it, obviously. So this would be like an addendum to their file until it gets incorporated into the handbook for new employees.
Justin, is this just an update of something that we already have?
We don't have a social media policy at all right now.
Really?
Yeah. It was something that was asked for by a couple of you folks, so I worked on it. And this is for your consideration. If you want to, if you have any changes, just let me know.
What was the origin of the policy?
Just that, we had a few instances where some departments were allowing comments, some departments weren't. The town attorney we ran into an issue where someone forwarded a particular set of posts who isn't a resident of the town, but was trying, he's an individual who does this to municipalities all over the state. And we didn't really have the ability to retrieve all that information in a way that was really appropriate. We were able to satisfy him, but not in a way that's really acceptable to FOA. So that was just one instance. I don't have any.
No, I think he was asking the template, who you snagged.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were asking where the thing.
It was a good answer, right? I'm going with it.
This one is a mix of all kinds of them, because if you take these from a large city, they turn into like 40-page documents. I didn't think that was necessary. We don't have a public, what's the word I'm looking? We don't have a full-time communications person that's doing, Instagram and all that stuff. We're pretty simple. We have a YouTube page and we have Facebook pages for various departments. So I took a mix of some smaller towns and some bigger towns and tried to come up with what I thought fit best for us. So I can't say it necessarily came from anybody particular on this one.
Will the posts be shareable?
Yes,
So if someone wants to go and take a post and put it on their personal page.
they can comment.
And say whatever
Because at
they
that
want.
point, it's no longer ours.
Right.
I make a motion, we approve the social media policy draft.
I guess.
So Chris has made a motion and seconded it to approve the social media policy. Those in favor? Thank you. Next is to consider the Monmouth Monitor newsletter policy.
So this one, looking for you to comment on the name of that, but also on its contents. This is an idea to try to get more information out in more ways to the public. So it's basically it would be a quarterly newsletter. Not something that we're going to put in everybody's mailbox because it's very expensive, but it'd be something that we may put them at the town office, at the library, certain amount of them. But it's really mostly going to be a digital thing that we can push out on Facebook, and in the policy, it basically allows the purpose of the publication is to inform Monmouth's public of affairs of municipal boards, committees, commissions on a regular basis, the budget, voting, municipal events, and for public service information. Obviously, it's available to all municipal boards and commissions. And those would be limited to one page. That would also include any departments that, if they wanted to include something in there, nonprofit organizations, Churches, organizations, and community service groups will be limited to a quarter of a page, and then there's an exception if they ask me and I allow it. And then, and all the content should meet the public rules, the rules that you have for your meeting, so like the same type of decorum. And it's all subject to review by me, or the town manager. They should be relevant to municipal government or civic activities in the town. They should be submitted by municipal officers, officials, or members of appointed boards and committees and duly authorized representatives of local nonprofit groups. No editorials or letters to the editor. Articles should not contain political messages except for profiles submitted by those candidates who will be representing the town of Monmouth. Those should be kept to a few paragraphs. And then it just talks about pictures need to be in a digital format, and that's pretty much it. So that's kind of the standard. And if you have any comments or changes.
If we were to approve this tonight, we thinking like getting that in the first of the
I'm
year?
thinking we could try to shoot for something for the winter, sometime January maybe, or somewhere along there.
So, I mean, I know we have talked many times about the getting the information out there, but I was curious, because I didn't know you were working on this, the impetus of who was gonna be writing it for the most part, or whether you were gonna be asking different committees or boards to contribute, or
Yes.
how the content will appear.
So the content will be driven by the committees or any appointed official. So if the police chief or anybody wants to do it, there's not going to be per se a writer. There's going to, I'm trying to, Dennis has expressed an interest in putting this together and making it pretty. So he will collect all the information, and he'll add the graphics and try to make it look nice. So that's kind of the idea. I'm working with him on what that'll look like right now, but the content won't be written really per se by anybody other than the person that's trying to express whatever it is they feel is important.
He'll do the, checking to make sure everything is grammatical and
Using spell check.
Yeah, well, he might need a spelling teacher.
To some extent though, Doug, because these are submissions by the individual that writes them. So if the chair of XYZ committee doesn't have a flair for writing, it's gonna come out the way that they wrote it, because it's their submission. It's almost like what goes into the town report, the committees write their own stuff. And
I think it's a great idea.
Is it gonna be available all the time digitally and only printed 4 times a year?
yes,
Is that what you're doing? So Doug's notes can go in it, and everybody can read Doug's notes on that document?
Like the select board notes would be.
they could if he wanted to summarize them somehow, but he writes too prolifically on each meeting to make it fit on a page, so the select board would be able to write a page, they'd be a committee, so they would have a page that they could add something to,
Okay,
because we don't want it to be, a dictionary,
gotcha.
because then I'm afraid no one will read it.
you know that he's reading select board notes for people who don't want to read it.
Yep.
What?
It's online. He's reading them on,
It's a video version of Douglas's summary.
So that just tells you, so that just tells you how much I'm on Facebook. Well, I'm glad you're reading them, Ken. So somebody's reading them, but.
Yeah,
you're reading
apparently I'm the
them
only
and
person who reads them
videotaping
because everyone else
yourself.
wants to watch them on video. Everyone else wants to watch me read them.
Oh, really? I guess I'm missing out on that.
you gotta tune in. So.
Oh, my gosh.
What is,
I make a motion, we approve the Monmouth Monitor newsletter policy with a implementation date of the first of the year.
I'll second that.
so Ken has made a motion and Chris has seconded it to implement the Monmouth Monitor newsletter policy beginning first of the year. All those in favor? Thank you.
You're in it now.
Fiscal year 24-25 warrant number 6 and 7.
I believe that should be, yep. All States Construction, $102,090. That's the town farm road paving. Blue Rock Earthworks, Materials Transport, 2,772.
Could you repeat the first one, Justin? How much was that?
102,000 change. That's Ron, Kimberly, and Christopher, 1,524. That's a property tax abatement. Creative Digital postage for the tax bills, 1,479. Truck repairs, DL Thurcott Incorporated, 1,390. Dennis K. Burke, gasoline, 1,288. Grimmel Industries, waste disposal for the transfer station, 7,688. Benson Baird, legal fees, 1,042. KRA Seal Masters, hot rubberized flooring, $5,000. Kennebec County Registry of Deeds for the 2023 liens, of which there were 143, 2,717. Maine Equalization Consultants, the assessing agent, 2,437. Maine Municipal Health Trust, $3,019. Napa Auto Parts, wheel bearing and hub assembly, 1,245. Napa Auto Parts again, 1,506 for surface cleaner and rust-proof spray. New England Vehicle Outfitters, lighting for a police cruiser, is that correct? 2,910. Nickerson and O'Day, the contractor for the old Academy building, 12,830. Northeast Energy Apparatus, $2,729. That's fire department equipment. Screen printing, 1,425. That's the rec jerseys and all sports teams. State of Maine Bureau of Motor Vehicles, $11,033. For a total of $173,907.02.
This is 2 warrants, 6 and 7.
Yeah, they should be all on this list because we didn't have a meeting.
I make a motion, we approve fiscal year 24-25 warrant number 6 and 7.
Second that.
So there's a motion by Ken, second by Chris to approve warrant fiscal year 24-25 warrant 6 and 7. All those in favor? Thank you. I just wanted to mention that I understand that Sean Wheeler, Public Works member who is our mechanic, he will be staying.
Yes, he is staying and our other new hire is leaving. Winthrop stole him as their public works director. The Kevin, the new guy, is going next door. So we were like, yay, Sean staying. Somebody else is leaving. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you are correct, he is staying.
That was it.
Oh, that was it. Thanks. Since I don't go to Phil's for coffee, I'm glad that somebody's keeping me up to date.
That's what I'm doing. You don't know what you're missing out.
I think I do know what I'm missing out on.
See you at 5 o'clock.
I make, so, yes, go.
All those in favor?
Oh.
There we go.